So strength is a funny thing, but injury, I think, helps you understand your body a little bit better. It's like I don't wish injury on anyone, but I've definitely learned a lot through my injury, and I'm sure you have as well.
100%. I would say, well, like, what an opportunity to get better at something. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Verity Podcast. Coach Brandon alongside Coach Monroe here. Monroe.
How you doing, man?
What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, doing really well.
We are 1 week after the Open. Let's do a little recap here. What'd you think of the first workout? How'd it go for you?
I really liked it. It went very well for me. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a good test. It was classic. It was just long.
Yeah.
It was, pretty much what you'd expect from the first workout, where it's not super high skill. It's just kind of more a long kind of grindy test. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was fun. What'd you think?
It went much better for me than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
So, my whole intention of going in there, when I saw box jumps, I don't like box jumps. Box jumps just spike
You said
my
you
heart
don't
rate.
like?
I don't, no, not any variation of them. For whatever reason, I used to really like box jumps, and then I started doing a lot less volume. And then, man, they're just hard for me. They get my heart rate going really fast if my cadence is going to be too fast. And so going into that workout, I was like, okay, the issue here is the box jumps. I wasn't worried about wall walks. I wasn't worried about the snatch. I was like, I need to deliberately, go slow, move, right? But step down from the box, kind of take my time between repetitions. And I did that for the first 10 minutes. And then the last 5, I'm just like, okay. Now just go.
Yeah.
And did well. I got a little over 8 rounds. My goal was to get 8 rounds, and I was really pleased with that. I didn't feel like death afterwards either, which I also don't really want to do at this point in my life. And but I also I thought that was a great intro. I had actually my best friend growing up. He joined CrossFit 6 months ago, and he texted me after, and he's so fired up with it being his first Open, and we're talking about it, and he was like, I was able to do the RX part. The box jumps killed me, but I had so much fun.
Awesome.
And I was like, man, I remember my first Open and just how much fun that was.
For sure.
And I thought it was just cool that somebody like that could do the RX movements and go through it and compare himself to other people. It was a good first week, man. I'm looking forward to week 2. What do you think it's going to be?
So I think there's going to be toes to bar if I had to pick one specific move. I'm hoping, my guess would be it's going to be toes to bar and some barbell movement.
Okay.
So I would say either toes to bar thruster, or I would like to see a hang power clean, or
I would love to see hang anything. Hang snatch, hang power clean. That'd be great.
Not hang power snatch, no thank you.
I'm like a hang power snatch whisperer, man, for whatever
really?
reason. Yeah, it's really strange. So I've only won, you could probably count the number of workouts I've won on the day-to-day basis here on one hand, and
One of them was a power snatch.
all of them have had some sort of a power snatch. So the one that I know I won for sure was 2159 of hang squat snatches and rowing. And it was just a sprint. But I just held on to it the entire time and was good to go from there. The other one was
awful.
power snatches and wall balls, which was a disgusting workout. And I don't know. There's just something about power snatching or just hang snatches that for whatever reason I can move okay and not get too fatigued, which is weird. Anyway, so let's jump into the topic of today's show. We're going to talk about knee health, which is going to be, applicable for pretty much anybody in the gym. We're going to talk about your story, my story with this, because we both went through something that was relatively similar. But first, talk to us about what was going on when I first met you, man. I felt like you had a lot of issues going on physically, hips, knees, all that stuff.
For sure.
So what was going on with you, and I guess just tell us the beginning of that story.
Yeah, so in 2017, I was pretty seriously competing in CrossFit. And in 2018, I kind of got distracted with life stuff, family stuff, business stuff. And I think I just wasn't paying enough attention to my recovery and the way I was doing things. And if you're not training at a level where you kind of earn the right to lift certain weights, or doing the extra stuff outside of the gym where I would say you earn the right to lift certain weights or move a certain way, then you can kind of really bang yourself up pretty quickly. I'm very confident with certain heavy weights that I've done for a long time. And so I think that my brain can kind of push me to a point where maybe my body isn't physically ready to handle, just because of like being fired up around other dudes or whatever, you know. And so I've, you know, especially looking back on a lot of my videos, you know, even through the recovery process, there's some things that I'm seeing where I'm like, it's probably not smart to put that kind of weight on in that terrible position that you're in. You know? But like the me of when I'm doing those lifts, it's, you know, I'm not thinking about, oh man, is this gonna hurt me? All I'm thinking is like, we gotta hit this weight, you know?
Yeah.
So there's definitely been a big growth part for me through this injury process and everything. And like you said, I think it stemmed from me just not taking care of myself and playing around with weights that I shouldn't have at that time. And then it just compounded from there. And a lot of injury, I think, works like that, like overuse type injuries, where it's like one thing starts to suck and then everything else starts to break after that. Mm-hmm. You know, so like you said, it was like, sure, my knees hurt, but it was a deeper issue than that. It wasn't just, my knee wasn't the problem. It was my quads and my hips and my ankles and my calves and everything else. So.
Yep.
Did you have like an acute, like, oh man, I did this and it jacked me up, or was it like an overuse kind of thing over time?
Yeah, no, so it was an acute thing that happened. It was like a power clean, I think, that I was doing. This was May of 2021. And, I remember like kind of feeling like I felt something, didn't feel good, and then there was pain kind of on the right side, top of my knee. And I just kind of tried to take it easy for a while, not really. I was just avoiding movements at that point. And I will say this to everybody listening. When you have an injury and you just start to avoid movements, like, you need to go probably get checked out.
For sure.
Just because avoiding the movement is not solving the underlying issue to whatever is going to be going on, right? You're just avoiding the problem. You need to go fix the underlying issue, though, right? And so it was months before I finally went and saw a gym. And, so I finally, swallowed my humility. It was like, I don't know what's going on. I need to go figure out this and go talk to Jim. So I went and saw Jim, and man, that first session that we did, it was not fun. It was really painful. But basically what we figured out is like my quads were so tight that like even like the touch of his hands, like he would just kind of dig his thumb into like my muscle. It was really painful when he did that, which is really problematic. And so I remember when he did that, he was like, "Oh, dude, we got some work to do here."
Yeah.
And so it was, I saw him several times probably over the next couple of months, and we were basically just working on lengthening the quad at that point to stop the compensation of movements that I was doing. I was so quad dominant that I was causing a lot of just bad motor patterns, particular to my knee. And we also determined my hamstrings were so weak. It was pretty astounding. So Jim would he would do this little test where I would be laying down and I would just try to curl basically the pressure that he was applying against my foot with his hand. Yeah. And he had like a finger on there, and he was putting like no pressure on there, man. And I couldn't retract his hand at that point, which was really eye opening.
Yeah. So and I had a similar experience when I started to go see Dr. Jim. I had a very similar thing, and like if you have knee issues and you have knee pain, a lot of it is not a lot of the issue is not with your knee. It's with like the upstream or downstream parts. Mm-hmm. And that's true for a lot of injuries. But it's really hard to be like, my knee hurts. Why does my knee hurt? But really the issue is up at your quads or somewhere else. So he told me like pretty much the same thing. And when I first went to see him, he was like, yeah, your quads are really tight and short and your hamstrings are really long and really weak. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like I deadlift 500 pounds. Like there's no way I have a weak hamstring. And similar thing, like, it's strength is relative. And, my hamstrings were weak relative to my quads, and my quads were so jacked up that I couldn't harness the strength from my hamstring. So strength is a funny thing, but injury, I think, helps you understand your body a little bit better. It's like I don't wish injury on anyone, but I've definitely learned a lot through my injury, and I'm sure you have as well.
100%. I would say, well, like, what an opportunity to get better at something too. I mean, to think that you have a 550-pound deadlift and you haven't utilized very much, if any, of your posterior chain and your hamstrings, like, well, shit,
that
man.
should make you excited.
It should,
yep.
Right? I mean, that's really, really cool. So, I kind of saw it more like that, and the thing with injury too is if you're an active person, it's a matter of time before you're going to get injured. And it really is for any human when you think about it, right? Because, even lack of motion, which is what most people deal with, we hear this argument a lot where it's like, well, I don't want to do CrossFit because I don't want to get hurt. And it's like, well, would you rather be sedentary and then just wait till your joints are going to be all jacked up and, kind of shitty? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go, move? I would much rather have the ability, I feel better now than I probably ever have in my entire life with where my joints are at now.
Yeah.
Right? But because, my motor patterns being quad dominant, it led to issues, but it's also leading me to going to be stronger over time, going to get a huge increase as far as posterior strength, going to go in the hamstring, which is going to be really, really cool. But yeah, man, I've learned a lot through that entire process.
And I like what you are saying about motor patterns, because that's definitely something that has been really eye-opening in my progression. And, I relate all of my injury stuff and my progression with this to, my litmus test is the squat, right? And so I want to be able to squat, so that's kind of why I want to fix my knees. But I really noticed that the motor pattern that I had for the squat, same thing. I had a pretty big squat, but my motor pattern was terrible. I was squatting all with my hips, and I wasn't using my knees or my quads or, and it's hard when you can squat a lot of weight, or you can put your hips below your knees and move up and down in the squat with a lot of weight on your back. And that's a very different thing than being able to squat ass to grass and, really feel the full bend of your knee and use both sides of your leg. And it's literally taken me a year to re-figure out how to do the squat. And I think that a lot of people, when they get injured, they are either don't know what to do to fix themselves, or they're too stubborn to go to the root of the problem, like what you were saying. Right?
It's hard, man.
And I'm the same way with you, with what you're saying with Dr. Jim, where you're I don't want to go see a doctor. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm Morgan will if her little tricep is bugging her because she did too many push-ups, she'll be I gotta go see Dr. Jim. My shoulder's messed up.
I think there's something special about that where women are just more attuned to ask for help than men are, sure. Right? And there's just, I don't know why, but some sort of a little bit of pride where I'm no, I'm a personal trainer. I understand how the human body works. And it's yep. Well, relative to most people, sure, but relative to Dr. Jim, I don't know jack. So right. It's interesting from that perspective. So let's go back to you. Let's talk about, was it both knees, one knee?
It was mainly my right knee. And going back to motor patterns, I notice now where my imbalances are side to side, and I care so much more about that than I ever did. So if you're new to strength training or you're new to CrossFit or whatever, paying attention to the differences in the way things feel from side to side, I think is really eye-opening as far as being able to fix your movement. So, for example, the box jump over. I always did box jump overs spinning in a circle.
Okay.
And lately I've been trying to, instead of always jumping with my right leg as my lead leg, that's the one that was injured, I've been trying to jump up with my left leg as my lead leg. And it's way harder because it feels unnatural for me. It's trying to brush your teeth with your left hand. Mm-hmm. But I think that the more that you can kind of even out the way those sides feel through movement, then the better your overall coordination with the movement will be. A lot of the squat stuff that I was saying is being able to coordinate the way that your hips and knees move together. It's not about how much weight you can put on your hips and move with your hips back and forth below parallel. It's about how can you use both of those joints together to be as strong as possible. And that's totally transformed my squat, but that's taken a lot of effort. So,
what do you think the best thing that you did for your knee was?
What is the best thing that I did for my knee? So there's been a few things throughout the progression of me fixing my squat, and before I answer that, I would say I am 98% healed? As far as like are you 100%?
No, I would probably say that I'm definitely not 98. I would almost go something along the lines of like maybe 80% or so, because I've gone back to the squat too, and I'm not squatting nearly as much weight that I used to squat, right? I mean, I used to, prior to all this stuff, my number one squat was 375, and I can't even touch that. I did like 4 sets of 3 the other day at like 255, and it was hard, but I was also being super mindful of everything that we're talking about, the way that I'm moving. It was really difficult at 255. And so, like, no, I'm not back up to, I used to be able to do, sets of like, 325, 335 for 3 or 4, for 4 or 5 sets, kind of back in the day. And I still need to get my hamstrings to a better position, but I'm not 100%. I don't feel any pain, but I would say that the strength application is not the same that it used to be, and that's because I'm trying to be really mindful of how I'm moving. Yeah,
same. I mean, I don't have any pain, but I can still feel tightness in places, which we can kind of talk about in a minute. But what was your question?
So my question was, what was probably the best thing that you did in order to kind of fix your knee? And you can answer that, and then I'll go after you because I know what mine was.
Yeah. So I think that slowing movements down, and like there's a bunch of different ways that you can challenge yourself in the gym. There's a bunch of different ways you can challenge yourself with strength training. You can challenge yourself with load, or you can challenge yourself with position. And I think that a lot of people challenge themselves with load and then worry about the position later. And if you can make holding a position or being in a correct position what you're focusing on in the lift, and challenge yourself that way, the load is kind of irrelevant, but you can get a lot more progress by having a correct position and making that the thing that you're fighting for, as opposed to the load. So like pauses, holds, tempo work. Like we've been doing these tempo front squats, and they make me feel great. Like they're terrible. It's like 1.5 minutes time under tension.
Oh my God, that's a long time.
I mean, he's having us do 5 reps in the front squat, 5 seconds down, 2 seconds pause, 1 second up.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a lot of time under tension, but I think that all that position work and pausing has really, been one of the big things that has helped my coordination in the squat feel better. But as far as like the things that really helped fix my knees in the beginning, I would say number 1 would be working the Nordic, working the hamstrings, because like what Dr. Jim said, same thing to me, you have weak hamstrings relative to your quads. Mm-hmm. So like I still can't, but sit back on my heels, like in a saddle pose. But I can go like palms down flat and touch the ground with my hamstrings locked. And so a lot of it is strengthening hamstrings and lengthening the quads, which for me happened with the Nordic.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What about you?
It was rolling the quads for me for sure. Was number 1. I can't tell you how tight my quads were prior to that. I remember thinking like back in the day, this is back when I was coaching too, where I was like, you don't want to roll directly on top of the leg, because I thought I was just rolling on top of my femur. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the case. That was how like tight my quad was, is it felt like a bone. It was so painful. And I remember my physical therapy for fixing that was, hey, you have to spend, it was like 2 minutes each side of foam rolling. It was every day I would do that. And then I bought like a Theragun, which was a little bit better. It wasn't quite as painful, but I remember just sitting on top of the quad. That part of my day was absolutely awful. And it probably took about a month or so before that finally started to get better and better. And eventually that really alleviated the pressure. That made the pain in my knee go away.
So you said 2 minutes every day of foam rolling?
Each side.
Which
doesn't sound like a lot, but it was like I couldn't do it for full 2 minutes. I would have to do like, it started probably even in like 10 or 15 minute or second segments, and then I would have to take a break because it would be that painful.
So what I got from that, what you just said, was that you were consistent every single day in doing it.
Yeah, I was. And then prior to that, I really didn't stretch or mobilize or do anything like that. And I do a shit ton of that now.
Yeah. So I think that consistency is another reason that you're having success and that I'm having success. Everything, like I said, the Nordic was kind of the first big aha for me. and really.
Can you describe a Nordic curl for those who maybe don't know what that is?
So basically, like, if you want to be able to hold and control your entire body weight at your knee joint. Mm-hmm. So if you were to sit on your knees with someone holding your feet, you want to be able to control your whole body weight all the way down to the ground, and then only flex at the knee and come back up. I've done like glute ham raises where like you kind of get in a GHD machine and like put your knee below the pad. That is not the same thing at all. And so yeah, once I started really working that, and it's one of the first movements that opened up my eyes to eccentric training, which I think is so valuable now. And like I always knew, people tell you like, oh, if you do slow negatives, that's the way you build a lot of strength. With the Nordic, the exercise is the way down. And the slower and more controlled that you can go on it, like, in my opinion, the cooler it is. People like the way up. But being able to, like, control yourself down and then blast up, that's awesome. Sorry, side note. But, yeah, the Nordic was being consistent with that. I did it maybe 3 times a week in all the different variations. And added in a bunch of other stuff that I had found from Ben Patrick, who's the Knees Over Toes guy. Started following the Athletic Truth group on Instagram, and just kind of added in like a bunch of his exercises, just kind of as accessory work. So I didn't buy his program. I didn't follow like the plan or whatever. I just kind of found the Nordic and like the reverse Nordic, the weighted butterfly stretches, the standing piriformis good mornings, like a couple of exercises that I liked from him, and just started throwing those in 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. The other big aha thing for me was this 5-minute deep squat. Have you done this yet?
No, elaborate for us.
Dude, so going to your consistency point, I've been squatting for 5 minutes at night, every single night. And it has totally changed my mobility in the squat.
So you just sit in the bottom of the squat for 5 minutes? You got to accumulate it, or can you sit there for 5 minutes? I remember there was a test. Do you know what level method is? Mm-hmm. Okay, so they had the 4-minute squat test on there, and that was brutal. I remember going through that. Felt like you were just down there for forever. So are you doing 5 full minutes or just accumulating 5 minutes?
No, 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 full minutes. So, I mean, I'd start with whatever you can handle. Yeah. But, like, a lot of the reason that I had trouble bending my knee all the way is because I never bent my knee all the way. And it makes sense.
That would provide some issues, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I took this rock tape course years ago where they said where there's stagnation, there will be pain. And that has stuck with me since that day. But I never bent my knee all the way. I just squatted down with my hips, and, that's getting into that deep squat for 5 minutes every single night just put me in that position longer with my knee fully bent. And I just set a timer and commit to it, and I'm like, okay, once this timer goes off, I'm standing up. And it doesn't have to be as low as you can. You can put your hands on your knees, you can put your hands on your feet, you can push your knees out, whatever. Just spending time with your hips below your knees totally changed the way my squat felt. You do mobility every night now?
I don't know about every night, but very close.
Do you do it with Sydney?
No.
Oh, you should get her on it.
She's pretty good about that.
Really?
She always has been ever since I've known her, and she's actually probably one of the most mobile people that I know.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. But just like whenever I got like a show on, or I'm just like winding down, like we watch a lot of shows that we'll have in particular, and I'll just like get on the floor, I'll grab my foam roller or my Theragun, or I'll just sit in a couch stretch or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I'll tune on what's it called? What's our stretching app?
ROMWAD?
Yeah, shameless plug, right? I'll turn on ROMWAD and do something there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Not quite every night, but very, very close.
Yeah, we've me and Morgan have kind of, it's like our bonding time now. She went to Wadapalooza, and she got us the toe spacers. Have you heard of these?
Yeah, so I have. How do you like those?
I like it. And I feel stupid. Like, I feel so dumb putting them in. And, like, Harper, like, comes in and, like, wants to try and put them on her tiny little toes. It doesn't work. But, so 5 minute deep squat every night with the toe spacers in has been, like, killer for me.
That's wild.
But, yeah, the toe spacer, I mean, it feels good. I I don't know if I believe in all the like toe spacing voodoo stuff. I don't know. I had this whole thing with my feet and my shoes for a long time. Through this process of healing my knees, I was like, oh, well, it has to be because I'm wearing these Nikes that have this 4mm heel toe drop and this crunching my toes in this little toe box.
Right.
So I bought barefoot shoes and did all that for a long time, and like maybe it helped, but
not so sure.
Not as much as like just working on my problems, you know.
Right.
So,
well, let's take a quick break there, and then we'll come back and we'll actually describe what toe spacers actually are. All right, man. So for those who don't know, what are toe spacers? What are they trying to accomplish?
Basically to like reverse the effects of wearing shoes. So like the theory is that like if you look at your hand and the way your fingers come off of like your bones, they go in a straight line off of the bone. And if you look at your feet, a lot of times people, what are those called? Metatarsals or whatever. Mm-hmm. The bone that runs from the top of your foot to your toe will go splayed out in a line, and then your toes will go like crunched in.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of from the way that our shoes have been shaped for years and the way people walk. And so the toe spacers are basically just to space out your toes to what they should naturally be.
Interesting.
So your feet should kind of look like your hands, like your toes should be able to splay. If you have like bunions or whatever, your toes kind of knock in. Like it's.
Do you think if you spent more time barefoot that would fix some of those problems, or do you think you actually need to put the toe spacer in there to kind of reverse that process?
No. So I mean, I spend a lot of time barefoot anyways.
Yeah.
Like I always have as a kid. I've always liked more minimalist.
That was the thing as a kid, man. I remember we loved to be barefoot everywhere,
but I don't think that's as much like. I see the trend going towards more people wearing shoes for longer and not being barefoot, and I think that barefoot and like barefoot shoes is more kind of like a niche, seen as like earthy, crunchy type of hippie stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that I do agree that like I think that our culture and the way that our shoes have been designed for years leads your feet to be that way, and something like a toe spacer can help. But yeah, just spending more time barefoot, or and that's when you're doing these deep squats, doing it barefoot, when you're fixing your squat, when you're trying to heal your knees and correct those motor patterns, like being barefoot is almost essential. It's like I've been telling you, I have this Knees and Nordics program that's basically like, it's basically what I did. Like I said, it's like accessory work that I did like 3 days a week. And it's basically just kind of the stuff that I did to fix my knees. And after each one of those sessions at the end, I have like sets of deep full range of motion air squats barefoot. And that's just to reconnect the sense between your foot and the ground. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of people, lose that connection. They say that your lips and your hands have just as many nerve endings as your feet. And so it's like trying to text with gloves on. It's like really hard. Yeah,
that's an interesting theory, which makes me want to spend more time with shoes off. I remember growing up, man, like that is what you did.
Yep.
We had the theory that when we were, 8, 9, 10, tween years, to where like we would play sports all the time. So we'd play, particularly like baseball and football. Everybody would play barefoot because they thought they were fast. Everybody thought that.
Yeah. So dude, why do you want that weight on your feet?
It's a good point. Right, it's a good point. All right, so let's talk about some of the other stuff that were really helpful for developing hamstring strength, fixing the knee. Number 2 thing for me was using the monkey foot, which was really. So I did Nordic curls too, and those were really difficult for me. Just again, one, I really have never done eccentric work ever, and I'm also starting to get more into that, or at least pay more attention to it, because especially like in a jerk or a bench press or something, I'm just like, oh God, like get the weight out of there, And so with the hamstring stuff, the monkey foot was easier for me, just because I just didn't have as much strength in my hamstring, so I'd use that quite a bit. Yep. And then I would do Nordic curls as well. What are some of the other stuff that you did to work on the issues that you had to work on?
If you were going to ask me before you said, I was going to say the monkey foot. No, the monkey foot is great, and that was so Jim. Before I started doing Nordics and before all of this, gym was trying to have me do like banded hamstring curls.
I've done a lot of those too. I like those.
Oh, really? I hated it. Like, just
it's awkward getting in, and I think it's better if you're using a band to do a single leg than a double leg. But I've done a lot of that too, and I actually enjoy that to kind of change it up from time to time. So
I just could never, like, I don't know if it's the way my feet are, or if I just didn't set it up right, but I could just never get the band to stay around my foot and to get like the right activation through the full range of motion of my hamstring. And then I started seeing ads for the monkey foot. And I was like, wow, this is sick. And it looked kind of corny, to be honest. Like, people like, lift dumbbells with your feet. And then I saw Knees Over Toes guy using it. And it was like one of the only things where you can do it like unilaterally, as opposed to with the Nordic, it's both legs. And like, I felt like I could work the full range of motion with like 5 pounds, which you can't do. Part of the problem with the Nordic is you have your whole body weight.
Exactly.
So it's really hard to scale that. But what else did I do? The deep squat and the Nordic were like the 2 big ones.
Okay.
Recently, so kind of what I was saying earlier, like, it's not just like, even though your knee may be causing the issue could be other places. And I've also found that, especially with having tight quads, there's certain parts of my quads that were tight. It wasn't it's not just like you were saying, you were like, the whole thing was really tight. Like, my mid quad.
There were definitely more areas that were sensitive than others. So like the lower quads were really, really tight compared to the upper quad.
Yeah. So like, and I've found that different things help different parts. Like this 5-minute squat, I was telling my wife the other day, I'm like, I feel like I've kind of maxed out like what I can get out of this from doing it every day. And so the reverse Nordic is what my kind of new thing has been. So that's basically sitting on your knees, and instead of leaning forward, you would lean back and pull yourself back up with your quads. A lot of the stuff that I did that helped follow this lengthening is strengthening concept that kind of blew my mind. If you think about stretching, like stretching your muscles is like, it's like stretching your t-shirt. Like the fibers will stretch apart and then they'll shrink back. And like, if I tug it enough times, the shirt will stretch out and it'll kind of stay longer. But if I had resistance bands attached to either end and I was engaged while I'm pulling that and engaged through both directions, then your muscle fibers get stronger holding in a longer position than it just kind of shrinking back like a t-shirt, right? So I use that concept with like all of this stuff with lengthening my quads out, and that's been like super helpful. But yeah, I've been doing the reverse Nordics every night, and I've been doing those for maybe 2 weeks now.
Awesome.
So I'm doing really well with that. It's getting better. It's still not where I want it though.
Understood, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Where else do you want to talk about knee stuff, hamstring stuff? Where do you want to go, man? We've covered a lot of ground here.
I don't know.
Cool. Let's
wrap it up.
Yeah, let's recap real quick, guys. So if you're dealing with some knee stuff, I would say the first thing here is, man, if you need some help, be humble and go ask for help from somebody that knows this stuff a lot more than you, whether that's either going to be a coach here, if that's going to be Dr. Jim. We both recommend him. He's done awesome stuff for us, and he's in the same building now. Has that finally happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's moved up.
Yeah, he's just upstairs, okay? So some of the stuff that we enjoy that really helped us, foam rolling the quads for me, using a Theragun on top of the quads, anything that's going to lengthen that muscle. Monroe talked about the 5-minute squat that he was doing before bed, the Nordic hamstring curls, which you guys can go and YouTube that. Do you have any content out there for Nordics?
Yeah, I have a lot of content on my Instagram. If you follow me at Monroe Miller, I put out stuff about the Nordic and all the other stuff that I'm doing to, fix my knees and everything else.
Okay.
I do have a program it's a 6-week program, basically of the accessory stuff that I did to help fix my knees. So that's up for sale now on our store. If you go to verity.training/store, you should be able to find the program up there. And that has 2 options. You can either just download the program and do it on your own, or you can take the coached version and you can spend 6 weeks kind of sending me your videos and we can work through it together.
That's awesome, man. Cool. Let's see, what else do we got here? We got the monkey foot. banded hamstring curls. There's a whole assortment of stuff that's going to be strengthening the posterior chain. I think most people, not all, but most people are going to be quad dominant kind of in our world, especially in the CrossFit space. So definitely have that for consideration, man. Closing thoughts to you there, brother.
Lengthening is strengthening.
Okay.
Yep, make it long and make it strong.
Yep, awesome. I'm just going to say, ask for help, right?
For sure.
Go seek out the experts that know more than you. That's going to be really good. All right, guys, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, if you guys could like the video, that would be fantastic. If you guys have had a really good experience with the podcast, if you guys can go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review there. Share it with your friends and family. That would also be great. I'm Coach Brandon. This is Coach Monroe. You're listening to the Verity Podcast.